We are the Necrotizing Fasciitis Foundation, also known as the NFF. Our mission is to advocate and spread awareness of necrotizing fasciitis, a rapidly spreading bacterial infection that can destroy skin, fat, tissue, and muscle, not to mention lives. For this reason, it is often referred to as the flesh eating disease or flesh eating bacteria. To contribute or participate in our cause, or for more information, please visit our website at www.necfasc.org.
Hello and welcome everyone to the state. My name is Tim Hayden and I'll be your host. Our guest today is Allie Lane. Allie is a necrotizing fasciitis survivor. She's here to talk about her experience. Please feel free to comment or ask questions as we go along. Let's add Allie to the show. Hi Allie, welcome.
Hello, how are you?
Great, how are you doing?
I'm good.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
I'm currently a college student majoring in journalism and communications with a minor in theater and dance. I really like the performing arts and I like being around theater and things like that. So I like keeping that as a minor so I can keep that kind of close to me, even though I want to do something a little bit different. And tomorrow's my birthday. Just thought I'd throw that out there.
Oh, happy birthday early.
Thank you. It's very surprising that I'm here in the first place. So, extra celebrations.
Well, I noticed when I was doing a little background research on you, I noticed that you two are also into drama. I was as well in high school. I saw some of you sing great. I saw some of your performances that you had online.
Thank you.
Well, Allie, why don't you tell us how your NS story and experience started?
I remember, I think I was 14 or 15. I was a sophomore in high school. I woke up one morning in the spring and it was just a normal day, nothing really strange, except my left wrist just felt weird. Like it felt like there was a bruise, but there was like no rash, nothing to show a bruise. And I thought, well, I have a track meet after school today. I just have to go suck it up. It's probably because I'm a thrower and a runner and I probably pushed myself too hard at practice. So I just went through the day. But slowly through the day, my wrist and hand started getting a rash and it started getting a little bit inflamed. So I went to the teacher and I was like, hey, I need some ibuprofen. So they gave me some ibuprofen and I went on with my day and I felt a little bit better. Once I got to lunch, my wrist was completely inflamed and I was trying to hide it from everyone so that I could still compete in the track meet after school. And luckily, the track meet got canceled because of weather issues. So we had a very short practice and I could barely make it through practice at this point. It's like 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon. My friend drives me home. I'm sitting at home and I feel all sweaty. I have like flu-like symptoms. I have a really bad fever. My hand is now starting to get a little swollen. And so I'm like, did I just break my wrist and not realize it? Like, what's going on? So I texted my mom, who was on her way to her in-person college class, like an hour and a half away. And I called her and I said, hey, I don't feel good. What should I do? She said, take an aspirin, take a nap, just take care of yourself, and I'll be back soon. So a couple hours go by and I pass out in my room and I wake up and my whole arm is starting to get all red and inflamed. And I'm freaking out a little bit. My mom comes home and she actually left her class early because she was really worried about me because I wasn't responding to her text messages. I wasn't answering her calls. And my brothers didn't know that I was home because I was just dead out. So she came home, she comes busting in my room and she's like, okay, we're going to the hospital. I didn't realize your arm looked this bad. So we're going to go. And that's that. So I'm sitting there crying and I can't even get any words out to explain how I feel and what I think needs to happen. And so she just drives me to our local hospital, which is like really, really small. And we get there and they have no idea what's wrong with me. They're like, listen, this might just be a broken bone. Maybe you just fractured it weird or like sprained it weird and didn't realize it till now. So they take me to x-ray. They didn't see anything, so they sent me back and they started me on antibiotics. Um, and they said that they're gonna have to send me downtown to Detroit so that we can figure out what's wrong. So they put me in an ambulance and they drive me to Detroit. Um, Once we get there, it's like I think it was like midnight or 11 o'clock, so it's technically the next day. They put me in the pediatric unit because I was still 15, I think. Um, and they said, yeah, we don't know what's wrong with you. We're just going to let you rest for a couple hours. We're going to try to get the swelling down and we'll see you in the morning. And I was like, okay. So I go to bed for the night. I wake up the next day and my arm is even bigger. Like my arm is probably like this big. Like it was pretty inflamed. My fingers were like this big around, I think. It was crazy. Like, so they thought maybe she just has some like compartment syndrome or something like that, or they actually thought it was MRSA or a staph infection. And so then we would have to tell everyone back at school what was going on because of the locker room and that I was on the track team and everything to make sure no one else gets sick.
Were you having very much pain at this point in your arm?
Yeah, it was a crazy amount of pain. Like I don't even know how to describe the amount of pain that I was in. And I was trying to describe it to the doctors. And I remember throughout my stay, one of the nurses said, are you sure you're in that much pain? Because a 10, because I told her my pain was a 9 or a 10, she's like, that pain level is considered like childbirth level pain. I'm like, I'm 15. How would I know what that is? Like, this is what this feels to me. And so
Exactly.
I was pretty up, on the pain medications and all the other antibiotics that was going on. So I told her, and my mom was like, just give her more pain meds and it'll be fine. Like, let's just figure out what's wrong with my daughter. Um, so we had a bunch of, I was actually at a teaching hospital. So we had a bunch of students come in, and this was their last case before they were graduating. So like, oh my God, this is so cool. We don't know what's wrong with her. I felt like I was in a Grey's Anatomy episode. Um, so they put a PICC line in me so that they can make sure I get all my fluids and all that stuff. And they transferred me to the ICU because they still didn't know what was wrong. And I don't remember exactly how they figured out it was necrotizing fasciitis, but I do know that I'm pretty sure it was the nurse who gave me the PICC line because she said, look, it's just following up your arm like a bloodline almost. Like that could be something like necrotizing fasciitis or a staph infection. So that's kind of what they were treating was a staph infection until thank you. Sorry.
That's okay.
So they're just once they figured out it was NF, they took me to surgery and they just opened up my arm in a couple places to start reducing the swelling and to do debridements in the surgery and go through all of that.
So, do you firsthand remember up to that point? Because a lot of people, like myself, I know once I went to got to the OR, it was I don't remember. Everybody had to fill me in after that point.
Yeah. So I was really lucky that they let my mom stay with me the whole time and she was able to get the time off of work to stay with me. Because she slept in a hospital bed right next to me. They pulled out an extra bed for her and she every morning she'd be like, okay, do you remember what happened yesterday? Do you remember what happened in the OR? Do you remember like what was going on yesterday? I would most likely I would say no, or I remember I was in pain till they gave me some medicine or whatever. But I was really lucky that they caught it when they did and that they gave me antibiotics at the previous hospital because they said that if they wouldn't have started it when they did, we would have had a different outcome. I was also
So what
really
happened after the ER? Oh, I interrupted you. I didn't mean to.
oh
Although
no,
you
it's
were talking
okay.
about going to the OR.
So after that, they took me to a couple MRIs, did some ultrasounds to make sure that the swelling was reducing and that there wasn't any other problems. And they said that they told my mom that their job was to save my life and not my arm. And everyone, I felt like, because I was so young, was kind of protecting me from it a little bit and not letting me know that it was a 1 in 4 chance of survival at the time for me, and that like what exactly was going on. I just knew that I had a flesh eating bacteria, and what I had known from that one Grey's Anatomy episode way back from like 2007 or whatever. But they ended up doing 5 surgeries and 5 debridements within those surgeries. And I was lucky enough to keep my arm because they said that if any other doctor had looked at it, they would have amputated it when they had first saw it instead of trying to reduce the swelling.
I can
Um,
see the ink outline on your arm. I guess this was when you first went in,
Yeah,
or
so that was from the first day actually when I went to downtown Detroit, and they drew the marker on me. They left for 5 minutes to get me a glass of water. They came back and it was already past that line. And that's also kind of how they had the indication that it wasn't just like a staph infection, that it was the flesh eating bacteria.
I believe they call that a border mark, so they know the border of where it started.
Yep. This picture is the day that they told me I could be released from the hospital. Um, and you can see that all those stitches and all of that stuff. I'd sit there and I'd count over the stitches. I was like, "Wow, this is pretty cool." Like I found this stuff kind of fascinating because at the time I was obsessed with Grey's Anatomy, and when they took me to the pediatric ICU, they're like, "Oh, we'll bring in a Wii U so that you can play some games and take your mind off things." And I'm like, my one arm is up here and I can't move it because it's so swollen. The other arm I can't move because the IV, and every time I move it, it like falls out or whatever. And so they're like, "Oh, well, we can put Netflix on it." So they put Netflix on it, and they're like, "You can watch it on my profile or like whatever." Someone logged into it, and they're like, "You can watch whatever you want." And I spent the whole time watching Grey's Anatomy over and over. That's just what
Um,
I wanted to do. I don't
your
know.
arm looks really good there. They did a really good job. I
Yeah.
have seen some where they cut a strip the whole down the whole arm to open it up. Mine was similar to yours as well. Just they just did spots.
Yeah, I was really lucky. I had a really good surgeon team, but I had the 2 lead surgeons on it. I think one of them was like a sports person specifically, so they understood my concerns with wanting to dance and wanting to still do sports and be able to heal in that way. Um And one of them, or someone on their team, had said they had seen necrotizing fasciitis before. And so they knew how to go about operating, and they didn't want to leave me with all these nasty scars. And I remember they had a consult with a plastic surgeon at the hospital and said, "Once you're healed up, we can try to reduce your scarring and I can go in and fix things." And I'm like, "I think my scars look pretty cool. It's like a battle wound that I can just whip
Exactly.
out in public." And people are like, "How'd you get that?" And I'm like, "Oh, there's a whole saga of a story I need to tell you." But
Definitely a badge of honor.
um this picture was the day that I got my stitches out, and I was really thankful for that. Um I was also really lucky. I only got to stay in the hospital for 2 weeks, and I was only in the ICU, I think, for 10 of those days. So they said that I had like a miraculous recovery, and I was like 1 in a million because once I started getting off the pain meds and they started telling me more about like how fatal it could have been or things like that, I really sat down and I was like, wow, I am truly, truly lucky to have minimal scarring and to have my arm or my life in the first place. Um,
Yeah.
that's a picture of me and my mom when we went on vacation. She's really my rock, and she was the one who was there for me the whole time. Um, I was really happy that the nurses and everyone let my mom stay so that she could be with me the entire time and not have to drive an hour and a half home and like back and forth all day long, because that's just, it was too far, and gas prices and everything else. So um I was really lucky that her boyfriend was watching my brothers that whole time too, so that they could still go to school and they could still act like their lives were normal while I was in the hospital. And I had a really strong support system back home, and that was really, really good for my recovery as well.
It helps so much. People don't realize how much that just their support does help. Uh, this happening to you at such a young age, how did it affect you mentally and psychologically? I mean, how did you process that at 14?
Um it was really, really hard. Um because I came back to school and a lot of people were like, "Oh, what happened to you?" And all these rumors. 'Cause I was in high school, and all these kids, they don't know what's going on. They don't know what a flesh-eating bacteria is. They don't even try to understand. And so there was a lot of rumors, and so I had to deal with that. But luckily, a lot of my close friends who knew what was going on were backing me up, and they were like, "Listen, this is the real story, and she's a great person. She literally fought death. Like, come on now." So I was really glad to have that support system. But mentally, I was recently diagnosed with PTSD, and so I deal with a lot of that and nightmares. I have a lot of those too. I have a lot of anxiety. Anytime I get slightly sick or someone around me gets slightly sick, I will freak out, and sometimes I'll isolate myself and be like, I can't get sick. I can't get sick because I'm worried that like it could happen again, or something could happen, and you never know.
So, are you talking to someone about with your PTSD to help you get overcome it or cope
Yeah.
with it? I don't think you ever overcome it. You've learned to cope with it.
Yeah, I've been talking with my therapist for the last couple months, and I've progressed a lot. Especially with being in college too, there's a lot of other things that can happen, and starting to grow up and become an adult and trying to live my own life. There's still a lot I have to learn to navigate just in that regard, but also to have to grow up quickly and have to learn how to cope with all these other things that society doesn't always talk about. Like, a lot of people associate PTSD with like veterans and war soldiers, but that's not
Mhm.
always the case. Anyone can have PTSD from any type of traumatic situation. And that's something
Exactly.
I feel that I have to explain a lot to some people, because they're like, "Oh, were you in the military?" I was like, "No, I'm 19." Like, "No, I had a flesh-eating bacteria." And they're like, that but you weren't at war. I was like, "No, I wasn't."
Did you have to deal? I'm going to go back to when being back to the high school. Did you have to deal with rude and cruel comments from some of the people?
um
Because I know in high school it's very cliquish, and you
yeah,
know,
the teachers and the community was good. Like, all the parents who understood, and all the really younger kids that I would help teach at an after school theater and dance program, all of them were super, super nice. It was just the kids in the high school and middle school who didn't understand. And a lot of them tried to spread rumors. They're like, "Oh, I heard she was pregnant and dropped out of school. I
mm,
heard this. I heard she was bit by a spider and she's overreacting. I heard she went to a mental hospital and they like locked her up for something, and we don't know what's going on." And like, all of these crazy allegations. And I was just like, "No." I was trying, like, my mom was always keeping the school updated so that they would tell people what was going on. But I guess a lot of kids just took their imagination and like ran with it. And that was probably the hardest part of the recovery, was trying to get back into school, because I'd missed, I think, 6 weeks of school total, like 4 to 6 weeks of school. So
Right.
trying to jump back into what we were learning and trying to jump back into, all the friend groups, like, oh, what's been going on for the last month and a half? What's been going on in school? What's been going on with your family? Because I was so focused on myself and my recovery that, like, I had no idea what was going on in town. And so everyone was like, oh yeah, this is what's been going on. So I was trying to catch up on a lot of things all at once.
Right. I only ask because I know sometimes young people who aren't informed do what you were saying, make up things, and don't realize how hurtful it can be.
Right,
And
yeah.
we do have some younger survivors, and and I just kind of wanted to get your take on that. Uh, so, did this have any effect on your drama, your dancing,
Oh yeah.
your
I have a lot less stamina than I used to, so it's harder for me to do things for longer periods of time, especially if it is with my left arm. It doesn't help that I am left hand dominant.
oh no,
Yeah, so a lot of things have gotten harder for me, and I remember I originally wanted to be a musical theater student and apply and audition for musical theater schools, and I was doing that. I applied for like 13 or 14 schools, and I was auditioning all over the country. And every audition came back as a no, except for 2 schools. And I was really heartbroken. I was like, oh my gosh, like my dream school, I couldn't get into it. But then I kind of realized that it's too much for me physically to handle. I can't stand under those stage lights for too long, or I'll start having hot flashes quicker than some of the other actors or dancers might. Dancing for longer periods of time or too fast is harmful for me. It'll put pressure on my shoulder and my arm, which will hurt my back or my hips or everything else, because everything's connected. So um, I'm definitely still recovering 4 years later, but I'm a lot better than I was back then. And I've learned that it's okay to change your ideas or change what you want to do to help yourself. And it's okay to be selfish to heal. Because that's something I was struggling with. I was trying to just push my recovery and be like, nope, I want to do exactly what I was doing 6 months ago or a couple months ago. Like, I was crazy talented doing all these crazy things and like cartwheels, and I was a cheerleader, and it was really hard for me to try to jump back into things because I was just go, go, go. My occupational therapist was like, nope, you got to take a step back, be selfish, heal for yourself first, and then you can relearn and retrain your body to do all of these different things that you're trying to do. So, and 4 years later, I'm still recovering. I'm still working out all of that physical trauma, but I still dance, I still sing and act, and I still do all those things at college, but it's definitely a lot harder for me than everyone else.
well, I hope you don't give up on all of that totally because people don't realize how therapeutic dancing, singing, acting really can be. I mean, it helps you process things from a different perspective sometimes when you're acting anyway. So don't give it up because you've got a great voice. I haven't seen
Thank
you act. If you act anything like you sing, you're perfect.
Thank you. I'm not totally giving up on all of that, which is why I'm minoring in it right now, so I can still work on things while I'm still trying to take time for myself. But I'm also writing a play or a musical about my experiences with NF and how to cope and how to heal with that. So as soon as I have it all written and all planned out, I will definitely let you have a read if you want.
I would love to, but you just, I don't mean to pry into your writing, but you took a question I was fixing to ask is what coping mechanisms are you using that work best for you to deal with all of this?
Um, for me, it was like you said, dance and singing was definitely a huge coping mechanism for me. I know that when I couldn't dance, and my therapist and occupational therapist, they told me no more dancing because I was pushing myself too hard. I took to singing and acting and just sitting on the stage instead, or just standing on the stage. And that in itself was really therapeutic, to just sit there and sing and be able to still do what I wanted to do with my life. I don't know. I just find little ways. I try to remind myself of the positives. I try to think to myself, like, hey, think of where you could be, but think of where you are now and how far you have come from when you were first in the hospital. And you kind of need to not think about who you were before you were sick, because now you're a completely different person, but you have to give yourself time to grieve kind of who you were before, because you are losing a part of yourself with all of that happening. Like, you're not going to come out the same person. And that's just something I have to remind myself all the time, is like, listen, you're not the same person you were. It's okay. We're going to move forward into a better person. It's different, but it's going to get better.
I love your attitude. I love your attitude, your outlook of it. It's fascinating and fabulous, both.
Thank you.
Because you seem happy. You seem like you're not letting it get you down. You said that before you had isolated yourself around people who were sick at times and stuff. Do you let that fear control you any?
Um, Sometimes it will take over and control me, maybe for like a day or two, and then I'll like sit and think and be like, okay, you're a little bit crazy, just a little bit crazy. Like, nothing super serious is gonna happen. It's probably just a cold, or they're just, maybe it's allergies. Like, you just need to think about, um you need to not be a hypochondriac, and you need to just sit and think of the logic before you can jump to conclusions. And that's something I've definitely had to think about a lot, is thinking more logically than emotionally or erratically.
Well, I just don't want to see. I hate to see fear hold people back from things that they can do. Like I'm going to go back to the acting. Before you go on stage, it doesn't matter how prepared you are. You're scared to death,
Oh
which is
yeah.
a good thing. Which is a good thing.
Yes.
But you don't let it keep you from going on the stage.
Right.
That's what I look at as far as other survivors. Like some people who got infected from the water, they don't want to go back in the water. That it's a rational fear, but it's also irrational fear. If you don't have any cuts, if you're healthy, there's no reason you can't get into the water. Just
Right.
be aware. Be aware. Well, Allie, I'm so glad you were here and told us all about your experience. And yes, I do want to read your memoir when you get it done.
All right, I will send it your way when I finish it.
Okay, if you want to hang out backstage, I'll be back there in just a few minutes.
All right.
I'd like to thank Allie for being here today and talking with us about everything with her necrotizing fasciitis. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. I hope to see you next time for another episode of The Steep. Remember, be kind and smile.